Thank you everybody for your time. So this is a new webinar. We wanted to more or less to get some free talk about to find the right way to the dam system. So we know that today in 2022, as we can see here, we have a lot of solutions everywhere. But at the end of the day, it's all about the use cases. And so reason why the title is in somewhere challenging is DAM is a chess game, simple to learn, but difficult to master. And for this new webinar, we get the honor to get an amazing team. And so I'm very delighted to get this DAM veterans team. So, but of course, sometimes we are talking about veterans. Some of them can be maybe can miss the rendezvous. So we are still waiting for Mark, which we are just trying to chase and what's happened to Mark, but he can jump in the webinar in the next minutes. We get here the pleasure to get John. So thank you very much for your time, John. As you will see here, John is a very DAM expert since so many years at Risetime. To get you also to get Bulent. So it's Bulent is a president at Cyangate, and so we get the story of Bulent also. And I'm very delighted because during the last years we get the opportunity to talk and share, and especially during the last East World Dam conference, whatever it's New York, London, Los Angeles. So we're very happy to for this year really more or less to share our best practices. So, of course, Mark is definitely the best guy to make its own introduction. So Mark Davey is the CEO of IK Equity, a company based in London, and so introduced this year the DAM playbook, which is in fact the follow-up of the 10 core characteristics in order to stump the vendors, to work based on demo scenarios, etc. And so as soon as Mark will be there, he can take some time to talk about what he's doing. So now stage is yours, John.
Hi, I'm John Florence. I see a lot of familiar faces attending, so a lot of you know who I am. I got into digital asset management originally because I came out of the publishing industry, and you know, there were great strides made in publishing in the 90s and the early 2000s, but media was always a weak point. So I got involved in 2008 through an employer's project where I worked in education. And starting 2013, started working directly in the industry. Along the way, I met Bulent. We've worked on many accounts together, many projects. And I'm currently at Risetime, been there since 2015, where we do managed services being primarily the hosting and taking care of DAM applications on behalf of our clients, essentially acting as both infrastructure support and as subject matter experts. So I'm delighted to be here. And like I said, I'm looking forward to a lively discussion.
Thank you, John. Brent?
Hi all, I'm the president of Cyangate. I started my career in 2000 when I graduated from school, and this is essentially my first job. It was the DAM job. And I started at a company called Artesia, which was a pretty small company. Then we got acquired by OpenText, and I did most of my experience on implementing a solution from the vendor perspective. And in 2007, I formed Cyangate to address a need in the industry, which was to provide the expertise in a longer lifespan to our customers, meaning that it's not the vendor approach of getting in, getting customers started and getting out. It was more of a continuous relationship with the customers, staying with them and evolving either their journey in the dam or even switching dams from one place to another if needed, based on their needs, adapting to the needs of the industry they are in. And throughout those years, I have touched many industries, and it started with publishing, like John, just because publishing was where the content was, where people were spending the money on managing that content. It slowly moved to broadcast, media, entertainment space, and afterwards we are now slowly realizing that marketing has a big need in terms of digital asset management, which then became even more important for manufacturers, CPG companies. Most of our work is now on the CPG side, as well as on the retail side, which is a two-sided approach where on one side, we actually help our customers deliver their content to syndication networks. And on the other side, we help our customers pull content from syndication networks and manage that content to distribute on the retail side to their consumers. And we have been focusing on many of the key components in the DAM ecosystem, such as PIM, CMS systems, the DAM itself, as well as syndication sites. And we are now specializing more and more into these standard way of integrations. And we are building a new product to address the need in the DAM industry where you have to integrate so many different platforms with each other in the marketing technology space. And we are trying to standardize this so that our customers don't have to pay a premium for really building these integrations from ground up for their own use case. Because what we have seen is that even though everything looks very specialized, it's really at the core, it's very much the same. So this is a very relevant topic for us. And I know Frederick is also very focused on CPG, retail, PIM, DAM, CMS integrations. So it will be great to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for sure, Sid. And I really appreciate your experience and your sharing, because it's true. And so reason why I will jump to my part. So of course, we are a young company, a consultancy company in France, Activo. So we are a team of 10 people with DAM experts, PIM experts. And so I'm managing with Malika Kishish, the executive director. So mainly she leads the business in France and in Paris. And for more or less the DNA of our business is, as you say, it's really starting from the customer experience, business requirements, and really to get some agnostic approach to, because every user has its own story, and we cannot say finally at the end of the day that you can get one solution for one customer. And especially, I would say, so compared to the US and UK, the DAM experience is not really the same on our side. It's sometimes some people are saying it's a niche market, but by the way, it's we need to get more maturity at that level, and especially it's a very hard business regarding the competition, because it's even if you're a large company, the pricing model are very aggressive. So by the way, we are really trying, because finally to achieve that goals, and really to spend the time on the customer side, working on some different workshops, onboarding sessions, etc. And this is where we like to work. And so, as you said, finally, for different vertical markets, it's of course when you are in Paris, which is the city of light, etc. So it's a lot of brand luxury. It's the world of L'Oréal, Chanel, etc. But also a lot of retailers. And I think retailers are, we had some great stories with them since the last years. It's a lot of complexity sometimes to gather all the assets in one place. CPG, and at one time some agencies, because this is also the country of some very large agencies. And just to give you some views of the people who are working with, so it's always a great honor every day to leverage them at the enterprise level. And of course, I think, and especially here, something we saw really during the last 2 years is a great impact of the pandemic regarding the digital projects. So we spent it was an opportunity for us, as GFK was saying, by the way, which means that we started very just 2 and 3, and thanks to this Zoom, Slack, Teams, etc., we're able really to tackle everywhere. And finally, we had some great improvements in the way to approach the digital, and especially in France, because a lot of people were thinking that if you are not at work, you cannot really do the job. So it was, of course, a pain at one time, but an opportunity on the other time, as Kennedy was saying decades ago. And so really to start from the beginning, something we see also regarding the market, it's we have more and more solutions everywhere. And I would say at one time, the experience of most of the people 20 years ago was in summer was better, because today, as soon as this is the generation of TikTok, etc., and it's not because you can see some thumbnails in a window that it's a DAM system. So we are still really working to leverage DAM system as an engine for the assets and the metadata. And in the meantime, it's also some efforts regarding the solutions, because especially for new DAM solutions, sometimes we are more close to some CMS looks like than a pure DAM system. So, and we are trying also, thanks to some partnership, we have the IPTC here, or some CEPIC organizations to leverage what really matters in DAM system. And of course, as soon as we are talking about the DAM system, it's all about the life cycle of the assets. So, and one thing we see, and we saw during the last 2 years, it's the amount of rich media. So, of course, it's all about images, but in brand luxury, we have tons, and sometimes we have to manage 15,000 of raw files per day. So at one time, sometimes you don't have really the time to upload content inside your DAM system, but we have more and more 3D files. Video is also has main impact for, especially for social. And today, any smartphone in your hand is capable to do 4K video. So it's a lot of content to manage. And beyond the technology is also to find somewhere going from on-prem to cloud, because it's not just like, okay, a click on the button, and also regarding the security, etc. So, and this life cycle of the asset is at the end of the day, is in summary is difficult to master, as we said in the title of this webinar. So, because it's not something you can plug in. Sometimes we have customers saying, okay, I can be ready in 2 months, 3 months. You need to get the people, you need to get the governance, you need to sit all together, you need to get the marketing, communication, you need to get the IT part, etc. And when everybody is around the table at that stage, maybe this project can be successful. And I really like, it's more or less the same slide I'm sharing since the last 2 years, but to be honest, really, when we're working on the customer side, this is the perfect representation how it works, finally. So, and we great intent really to apply this view, which is more or less the strategy of our most big player in this market. And today, what we saw, and especially retailers, every DAM project is also a PIM project. And sometimes, especially in France, a lot of retailers started with a PIM system. And then they try to backward and say, okay, I've got too many assets, and a PIM system is not a DAM system. So even if some of them have some capabilities, but as soon as you have 1 million assets and terabytes of high definition, you can have some pain. And so it's very important to get, and this is really the DNA we're trying to advise to customers. It's better to get a pure DAM player, DAM system, and a PIM system. I know that some of you will tell me yes, but you know, in this market, we have some enterprise level. I said yes. I will not say there's just one answer, but really in the market, and especially on my side, on our side, and maybe I would like to get your approach and your experience, John and Brent, but we have a very limited budget most of the time. So we cannot pay a fortune for a DAM system or something that can do all together. And so at the top of this view, we have most of the time something like master data management. And the reality of that is we have more and more input channels. We have more and more output channels. So it's everything driven by CRMs or experience based on our sides. We saw during the last 3 years a rise of Salesforce. I will say I'm not sure Salesforce can do maybe a DAM system in the next 10 years. I'm hope so. I'm not hoping so that way, but it's more and more all the data is driven. And I would say at the end of the day, the question is not always about the assets, but it's all about the data inside in the company. So what's your opinion, John and Bulent at that stage? John?
I can
Go ahead,
start.
Bulent.
Yeah. So I agree that data is really the key here. Although we are focusing on DAM in our careers, in our everyone here is probably looking at it from the DAM perspective, but the data in not just in CPG space or manufacturing space or retail space, it is the key for essentially all the business operations. And the data that comes from different stages of your products or different stages of your assets are all manipulated throughout those stages through your processes. And it requires a lot of touching, moving between systems, manipulating, making it pretty, because what we have seen, as you can see, master data here on the screen shows that you're coming from your product ideation, then it gets into manufacturing. The data adapts itself from customer-centric talk to manufacturing talk, then it needs to get in front of your customers again, and suddenly the talk changes, the wording changes, and you're now trying to focus on how do I market this to my end consumer. Then the PIM starts playing a role. Now you have to move your data from your ERP systems into your PIM system. Then you have to adapt that information, how it will look on the websites, to your CMS systems or to your e-commerce platform. So the data and how this interacts with your assets is also a challenge in the current industry. The master data is supposed to address that challenge, but what we are seeing is that there is so much, maybe too many heads in the game, that it becomes a burden on every department in the company to essentially come up with a unique way to talk about your products, to talk about the metadata. We are facing this problem across all our customers to standardize on the drop-down list or the vocabulary that you will use in your DAM to identify an asset, or how you present your product in which category to different e-commerce channels. So data is really the critical point in all of these.
Yes, I do agree. So, and John, your experience?
Yeah, I agree with everything Bulent said. And as one of the things that is convenient here is that, you know, a lot of these examples that Bulent threw out, he and I and our teams are living through those exact examples. I think maybe the two things I would add to what he said, I think for me, 2021 was kind of a recognition that, you know, we commonly use that term single source of truth, that the days of that being true are pretty much over. I mean, it might be true in some like mid-tier DAM markets where you're just, say, driving marketing, where you just really need a PIM and a DAM. But for more enterprise level customers, you know, it's less about a single source of the truth, and it's more about the appropriate source of the information that you need. So like there's a big difference between the needs and the available data and the timing on that data with an ERP system, with master data, PIM, packaging systems, PLMs. You know, they all drive critical processes in the enterprise. They all have information that you need, but to expect one single system to be the source of the key identifiers is just not realistic. That's not how companies run. And the fact that marketing organizations are trying to be more agile and and shift more often versus, fiduciary responsibilities of accounting to report up to shareholders. Those are two dynamically opposite needs particularly in a public corporation. So instead of fighting each other, we need to find ways to make that work. And it gets kind of interesting because even the people in the organizations who live it day to day don't really abstract the information that way. So we spend a lot of time trying to educate people and enlighten them on what's actually going on in their ecosystem. The other thing I think I'd point out too is that a lot of these trends that we see in labeling this stuff, we get into kind of a boil the ocean scenario a lot of times on implementations. And I think we're starting, like Bulent said, with some of the tools he's developing, we're starting to get more into let's build the infrastructure to be able to evolve and connect as we go forward versus, trying to do a 1 or 2 year implementation. And at the end, find out that the organization needs to make a dramatic shift and all our work now needs to be updated, which, gets pretty expensive. Plus it puts constraints on the organization to meet their revenue goals, because that's what DAM is about, right? They're digital assets. They're assets because they have value. Value is always rated or considered in the eyes of shareholders and customers. So, sorry, that's my part.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, we have one question from the attendees is finally regarding these challenges. When do we have to pay attention when finally our DAM system is no longer efficient to the business and that we need a new platform? So, who can answer to this question?
I'd like to take that.
Mm-hmm.
So Bulent, you can disagree with me after I say it, but when I started consulting a long time ago, probably too long to really talk about, every consultant, and myself included, threw up that standard slide. Every system is people, process, and technology. That hasn't really changed, but I think what I've come to understand much better is that you can pick the right technology and you can build the right processes, but your organization needs to have ownership and investment in both of those for it to really succeed. And it's almost like a three-legged stool. And even though that three-legged stool has become pretty cliche in our industry right now, it still holds that, when we see, like, we process a lot of RFPs and RFIs from organizations who are interested in getting into this space and utilizing a DAM. And behind a lot of these RFPs are consultants consulting with potential clients on how to ask the right questions. And we know these people, and we are those people sometimes. But one of the things that I see is, like, when you win one of these after going through all these steps and then you get into the implementation, you realize that maybe the organization had aspirations of change management and adoption that aren't who they really are, or the technology sounded great, but the things that they thought would be critical to their success were actually more secondary, and the things that they really need may turn out to be something like the information architecture, which we were talking about before. Do all these pieces, if they need like these authoritative repositories of information, do they even exist? Are they clean enough to trust? Do they change often? Those kind of things really don't show up when you're going through an RFI or an RFP process, but ultimately they go into the long-term success of that system. Bulent, do you want to add to that?
I think what you're saying is really, if you have your mindset as an organization and you have the will of the people to make things work. Essentially, a lot of these dam systems will work, but there are also, I will point out to a different aspect, there are also showstoppers in the growth of an organization for a dam. I've seen dams that don't scale, for example. That's one criteria you can use to say, can I actually load more data into this dam? Do I have the ability to load more data into the dam? I've seen some open source products out there that just stop after a certain time. So that's definite signal that you should consider moving on to a more enterprise level dam. But the experience inside the dam is really important for the change management perspective. The experience needs to be pretty much user-friendly is what everybody's looking for. But when I look at different dam systems, I see that most of them are looking almost the same. Maybe some of them have a what we call the 90s look. I've heard that term used, late 90s, early 2000s look. Some of them have simpler interfaces, but what you can do with them is sometimes limited, but they look very clean, easy to use. You don't need to train anyone. But when you get to a point in your organization that your workflows are sophisticated, the ease of use needs to map to the process. If the process is established and can be executed with the application, the ease of use should be brought into the application by either adapting the process to work pretty efficiently with your platforms. It's not just the DAM also. It can be PIM, ERP, DAM, all combined. But it can also be that you may get to a point your platform doesn't give you or your DAM system may not be a platform to give you those flexibilities to adapt processes or to adapt the user interfaces to what you are doing. So that's another signal where you can look at and say that, do I invest in getting most out of a DAM that is so simple that I can't even add more because the data is getting complex. I can't model that data in my system. And is that the time that you make the decision, I need a DAM that can actually handle a lot more sophisticated DAMs, customizable user interface, configurable is better term to use, trying to avoid the customizations, but something that I can grow better with and be more agile. But again, what John said is the key that also points out why I started my company, because I realized that once the vendor left, which I was the vendor, I was able to tell that the buy-in from the organization, the change management perspective coming in to that project simply showed me whether that program is going to be successful in the next year or two, because it usually fizzled down to nothing, the activities in the DAM, and there wasn't any buy-in from the users, or there wasn't even an owner in the organization. So that's really the key. When we founded our company, we said we will stick with our customers. We will be around to answer every question they have, even if we don't charge our customers for that, because we know that their success is our success. And if you leave a customer alone and do not support them, that essentially can make the system fail, make the processes fail, and you won't adapt to it. So change management is the key. And looking at a system that can go beyond your needs as your needs change is also the key.
Yes, I do agree with you. So this is really the clear representation of what we see here on the daily basis on the customer side. And of course we are talking about the DAM, but the PIM, as I said, is also really at the heart of the main data stream, the data lake inside the organization. And it's also a lot of complexity, in fact, because we see so many customers, they have a data schema inside the DAM, they have a data model inside the PIM, and sometimes what I have to do I have to replicate the data model inside the DAM, or how I can manage a smart connection based on the naming convention, or do I have to find some automation between DAM and PIM? So that's also one of the complexity with our PIM system, which is, by the way, by retailers, more and more, I would say, deep dive in their target architecture, and especially now with marketplaces. So that's and the reason why today every DAM project on our side, outside some gallery, museums, etc., is always a PIM project. And so just a quick recap that the DAM is ready to collect, enrich, and distribute in order to control their product information. I put these slides, it's another slide from Akeneo PIM vendor, but it's a good representation also of finally here that we still need the DAM system in order to manage the whole set of assets. But in the meantime, you can see that you have a lot of different channels to feed. So it's not all about the syndication on e-commerce platform, websites. It's more and more going to marketplaces. And I will say also something for very first year now that we have some very challenging marketplace solutions today. They are doing the jobs very good, and they are very close to try to gather everything to do the job of DAM and the PIM. So, and for some retailers we are working with, it's not obvious when you have to manage a DAM, a PIM, a CRM, website, enterprise, CMS system, and in the meantime, marketplaces, as for example. And so a lot of complexity at the enterprise level. And of course, definitely something we try to advise, you cannot do everything in one system. And again, regarding the question we just had before, also, you always find finally a solution to but it's really driven by use cases, what you need to do. And of course, the more complex architecture you have, it's more and more engaging for the people, and you need to spend the time on the change. And so this one is a very an example. I wasn't able to display the name of a customer, but it's two customers we have. They have two different systems, a DAM and a PIM. They have to manage a lot of collaborations between agencies. They have to really streamline the data on CMS, different portals, thousands of e-retail portals, etc. And that's a challenge. And to be successful for this challenge, you need to get the people. And that's also one of the key we are facing today. Sometimes people want to start, they have to start a project, but they don't have a team. So, which is by where an issue at that stage. So what's your, just a quick remark, John and Bulent on this point?
I'll go. Yeah, I think your last point about having that the expertise or the just the resources within the company to be able to either manage the DAM or at least bring forth the use cases and the requirements in order to configure the DAM. A lot of times that's my biggest challenge. I'm fortunate that with a lot of my customers, if any are on here, they're very knowledgeable, they're very invested in how the DAM fits into their overall ecosystem. But on occasion, people come and go. You have periods of time where even the best organized customer doesn't have the bench strength, and sometimes we end up being essentially the administrator or the information architect or the data architect, or we end up kind of temporarily filling those roles. I would say Bulent ends up being a lot of people's architects more often than you would think. So Bulent?
Yeah, the challenge we see is that a lot of big enterprises, they have initiatives that involve the DAM, but they are kind of point initiatives. And without that overall kind of overarching architectural point of view, it becomes challenging and not so feature-looking solution ends up being developed or ends up being money gets spent so much, it becomes frustrating for the company and for the other teams that are involved within the company to say that this system is not matching my needs. I've heard this many times from various customers. An initiative pops up somewhere in the enterprise. They indicate that they need to involve that DAM, and within the system, within their overall IT infrastructure, somebody comes in and says, oh, this is how it's supposed to work. And there is no real data governance around it, and there's no overall vision of how things should be working. So that's why we try to get more involved with the customers to give them the best practices, as well as to also give them a picture of what is going on in their own ecosystem, because within their applications, they sometimes don't have that overarching vision of where the data is coming from, where they are sending the data, what is the real source of truth. That became very important in the later years as many systems started contributing to this ecosystem, to e-commerce platforms especially. It's really broken decisions or independent decisions that large enterprises think that they will be able to bring those independent decisions to create a whole. It really doesn't work, because it's almost like the thousands of adapters we have that we carry in our bags when we travel, right? Everybody in their own worlds came up with their own solution. Even the simplest plugs that we have, the outlets are so different across many countries that we have to carry these adapters. And these adapters are really becoming the pain, even though you simply should have thought that someone should have standardized this at the beginning, but nobody had that overall vision. And in the DAM ecosystem, we have the same thing, DAM and PIM. These are looked at from two different angles. They are so independent that the solution doesn't sometimes fit. And you always have to create your one-off workarounds or one-off ugly data points, potentially, that you inside your own organization. Also, it's really important to have that ownership and overall vision from within the company. We play that role, but ideally it should be coming from within the company as an overall data architect.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for this experience. And it's something really we started also to work on our side this year. The new MAC Alliance. I don't know if you already heard about it. So it's an organization with some new vendors, I would say. It's a mix of DAM, PIM, CMS, etc. So MAC is for microservices, headless, cloud API, so microservices, API, cloud, and headless. And this is one also of our vision and newer future of the DAM headless, I would say. And because, as you said, Bulent, it's sometimes it's a challenge for the people to start with. So it's, as we say, it's all about a nice UI to get. But in the meantime, it's a challenge for a couple of vendors to provide some custom front ends. And as for example, with some, it's amazing because with some customers, we see more and more SharePoints. So SharePoint is not a DAM system, just like any public drives. But SharePoint at the enterprise level has the capacity to customize the front. So because you have some web apps, so you can edit them, customize the portal. And we are using the capacity of this editing, just like as a CMS-wise, so to connect with the API of DAM. And so the DAM is the engine for SharePoint at one time. So just to give you some of the other things we have. And now I can see that Mark just arrived. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Fred. Apologies to everybody. I'm sorry, I had the wrong time. I was waiting another half an hour, 20 minutes.
So I was thinking about that, but as it's not really an issue. Something maybe I wanted to just to share is maybe you can make a quick introduction about you. So before moving to your part.
Yeah, sure, no problem. My name's Mark Davey. I am a digital asset management analyst and specialist and consultant, and have been for very many years. And I'm very late today, and I apologize. It's very tardy. I don't know what to do other than hopefully show you something that's going to improve your lives. So I do data architecture. I'm a governance advisor. I sit on governance boards advising about data models, taxonomy, metadata. I also join steering committees as a consultant, helping people understand all the implications of DAM and all the nuance and all the bits of data that kind of make it up, which makes me an all-round DAM geek. I am also someone who spends a great deal of time looking at linked data and linked open data, taking taxonomies, controlled vocabularies, metadata, and then bringing in other data from ontologies, building up the taxonomy. And of late, I've been building knowledge graphs specifically for business use cases and helping business understand what all this data and metadata is all about.
Thank you so much, Mark. And finally, just to make you the introduction to your part, so you are really at the right time. And of course, when we have your experience, it's also a good experience for us to, and we have so many things to share with our audience. The thing is, in fact, so maybe you saw, I like Scott Brinker. He's always this amazing chief Martech maps, or it's after years, it just maybe as a nightmare for most of the customers. It's thousands of solutions, and the DAM is just in the middle of a lot of things. And of course, when you are a customer and you want to start with a project, you want to, okay, I can take some analytics, some KPIs, how I can make a right selection. So I will say, and I think it's even more the case in the US, Gartner and Forrester are still at the top. So, but in the meantime, I see in Europe, it's not something they are searching for, because it's something we want to get something maybe outside of this type of analytics, or it's after years the wave of Forrester looks like as the chief Martech things. And the reason why we wanted really to present you the new DAM playbook from Mark. And just before starting with Mark, we just made a quick poll in order to I will start the poll. It's all about if you have a DAM project and how you can make the right selection. And so maybe we prepared some customer demo scenarios that we can relay regarding to stamp the solution. So I just give you some minutes if you have really the time to answer to this question, so we can then jump to Mark and to expose and share what is the DAM playbook. So it looks like that some of you have some DAM projects for this year. We have certainly some experienced DAM user in the meantime. I think I'm not surprised that most of the time we have where you are using the RFI, RFP process. That's 60%. And for which channel you want to see it, to compare DAM vendors who have, it's very, very close. So I think more or less you have to show all of them, Mark. So it's between the agency creative, photography editor, social media manager, brand manager, and less for packaging. So packaging is something a little bit out of the scope, but okay. So we have some, thank you for this information. And so I will close the poll. Oops. Okay.
You want me to share my screen, Fred?
Yeah, so normally you should be able to share your screen, Mark.
Let's have a look. Hopefully you can see a mind map.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, I'm just going to step back very quickly. And again, once again, coming in late. So I guess you guys have talked about the complexity, but I'd like to show a bit more of the complexity at the start of the process and then take you through what we believe is the actual best approach for anyone, whether they've got a dam system already, they're looking to migrate a dam system, or they're looking to start from scratch, which is very rare today. But lots of companies find that they start this journey and they go directly to the vendors and they do all the vendor aggregated information and they use the services that you've shown, Fred, of Forrester and Gartner and others. And what we say is actually you want to step back. The first thing you want to do is you want to build the right team and understand within that the people's roles and permissions and the type of information they're looking for. So here we have a typical enterprise dam initiative, which is set out as a mind map. And as you see, as you get into the different aspects, you understand that the dam director or the dam manager or the dam owner needs to think about KPIs. They need to do their vendor analysis, obviously. They need to do an implementation. They need to think about integrations. But prior to all of that, one of the areas that I see that always comes last is the governance attributes of a digital asset management system. The data model, the governance around it, the taxonomy, the control vocabularies, the rights, roles, and permissions should start at the beginning of a strategy. And I'll come back and give an example of complexity and strategy and data models and governance, and then why you get all that information prior to even looking at the type of vendors. I mean, you can look at a long list of vendors, sure, but getting down to a short list and a bake-off, you really need to understand all these implications of your own internal capabilities, people, process, systems, and information. And then what you want to do, and we recommend, and we actually have a form-based system that elicits all the business cases for DAM. And one of those cases, as you mentioned, Fred, is the use case scenario. But prior to the use cases, you want to understand the collective pain points. What are you doing with content user types? What type of content is used? What kind of channels are used in it? And who are your real customers? The 80% that you want to focus your strategy on, not the outliers, not the 20% you, in some cases, you're never going to fix, but who are the real clients? Where are you going to get this community, the bang for the buck for your strategy? So we do that through what's called gap analysis, looking at the systems and software and the processes and the information that's already in the business that can be harnessed directly into the DAM through governance and through the data model. And then the real big one is your requirements gathering. So you've looked at your people, you've looked at your processes, and now you want to say, okay, this is going to be the de facto type of information that we're going to require for our user group, our 80%. So, you can dig deep into things like, the administration, what kind of things are you looking for? How well does the vendor do these things? De-duping software. Things like, Fred, you may have mentioned the 10 core characteristics. We evaluate vendors against 22 dimensions. And one of the things we found with vendors that fail the 10 core characteristics, there's two key attributes. One is version control. So if your vendor doesn't have true version control and they're producing duplicates and replicates, then how's that going to impact down the line your client base? The other area, and it's a big one that vendors fail on, is rewrite of metadata, the ability to take assets, write data into them, express that data, embed that data in downstream systems or in other external websites, etc. So this is the biggie, the governance to-do list around it. And so I just wanted to do one real example of, sorry, I missed out on your use case scenarios, Fred. Come back to those. You're building up this plan, you're finding the personas in the organization that map your capabilities. They might have different functions within the organization. They might be internal, they might be external. This goes back to the data model and the ability to make sure they have the rights, roles, and permissions to do the jobs that they need to do with the assets or indeed any embedded workflows. So all this work needs to be done prior to the vendor selection. So I'm just going to give you an example of a real technical piece of information, which we call in the industry metadata profiling. It's the ability to be able to look at individuals and profile content specifically around the users themselves. So if we search our glossary here for metadata, there we go, that's what I'm looking for. So it's the ability to say, okay, this is Fred, this is Fred's role, this is his function, this is the brand he's working with. How do we serve up content specifically from Fred through a login, for instance? Then you start getting into conversations with other parts of the business. So it might be something along the lines of, oh, okay, well, we want single sign-on, or we want identity management. Okay, great. But first of all, do we have permission from HR to be able to profile our internal and external users? And if so, what are the requirements around just using this one specific idea of a profile? So requirements would cover taxonomies, control vocabularies, batch metadata updating, SSO or authentication or identity management. They come into the ability to actually bring HR into the mix as part of your strategy and ask these questions right at the start of it, not getting 3/4 of the way through into a product and understand, okay, this particular vendor doesn't do identity management, or we don't have permission through GDPR and our roles in the company to do this. There's a compliance issue. And this is what we talk about chess being, easy to learn. Damn's easy to learn. It's a storage system, but hard to master because you have to ask these specific questions. You have to bring people into the loop. You have to assign it to people. Anyhow, moving on. So once you've answered all those questions, you get to the bit that everybody goes here first. So these are all accredited vendors. All these companies have passed the 10 core characteristics. And we can start a simple search just by segmenting vendors by enterprise or multi-silo. We might look at them through, various parts of the business. Oh, is that time up, Fred?
You have the time.
Do I? Quickly. All right, I'll go through as quick as I can. Anyhow, so we look at the business. You mentioned packaging, but maybe not so. And then, top level, how many of these are free? Well, none of them, because we're looking at the enterprise. We're in very technical abilities. You might look at open source as a free system, but invariably they're not free. You might look at a price point. You might look at multiple price points, and you might settle on, okay, this is my long list for my quick information here. Let's go into Binder and have a look at what we've got. So the first thing we get is, what's their cloud productivity? What's their customer support like? What's their value for money? We look at the details of price and licensing and environments and cloud provisions, and that's pretty good. We've got a nice set of data here. Let's drill into the 10 core characteristics. And we see that Binder gets a score of 72%. And these are the variables I mentioned. So the 10 core the first 10 core is ingest, but there's ACID ingestion, there's metadata embed extract. So we render all this information against everyone that passes the 10 core. All the vendors sign off on this data, and then we get into comparisons. So if I go to the main 10 core analysis here on the playbook, by the way, this is going to be free for 7 days for anyone who's looking at this information. So we can put Binder in, we can put Picture Park in, we can put, let's put Widen in, and we're starting to get a see of, okay, at the core level of operations, you'll see each of these are better in some areas and less so in others. So whatever's important to you on your requirements and your fact finding will be elicited through the data here. And you can do this across multiple vendors. And what we've done with some vendors who have gone deeper than this, we can even break it down to the top level requirements for functional requirements. And on this particular system, we have hundreds, in fact, over 130 of requirements specific to each user's use case. And then you can drill in, you can see how to go from a long list to a shortlist, to a bake-off, but back to the mind map where you have all these other attributes like your own capability, like your gaps and the systems that you're using, like the requirements gathering and the governance. Once you've got all that together, then a system like the damn playbook where you can instantly render around these touch points or these data points will give you a better analysis overall for your strategy. Sorry I was late, Fred. Sorry I took so long.
That's an amazing demonstration. Thank you so much, Mark. So finally, John and Brent, so what's your opinion regarding this capability to compare on some dimensions? And of course, I do believe it's a challenge because every customer has its own story. So maybe it's important to focus on what really matters for them. But by the way, what do you think regarding this capability to tackle the data alongside the DAM systems?
So I'll go first, Bulent. So we, before Mark got on, I think Bulent and I spent a fair amount of time talking about the challenges of selecting a DAM or managing a DAM from the customer side. And, even though Mark didn't hear it, I mean, we talked about a lot of similar things around governance and capabilities and, adoption and technology and things like that. I think this tool really complements some of those challenges that we see when we go out and assess customers or go through RFPs, things like that, because it essentially maps what we're trying to find out on the requirement side against the capabilities of these tools. And, one thing that I've stopped doing a while ago is trying to be, evaluate tools as far as, which one's better than the other. It's really more about what's appropriate for any given customer, at any given time. So this tool does a nice job of kind of bringing those capabilities up to the surface in making it more objective versus, saying, hey, you need to have this feature or that feature or you're not good enough.
You make a good point, John. How many times do we go in as consultants and we pretty much know what vendor we're going to choose from the client based on our perception of industry. And then as you get into deeper, the sort of the requirement side of things, your opinion changes or other things come into the mix. So that happens all the time, surely.
Sure.
Yeah. So it negates our own bias.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Brent,
I would say this is a big time saver actually for a lot of the customers. Instead of going to 50 different vendors, trying to figure out what they say about their products, the work is right here. So this can be a great first kind of the list you can create for your needs, and then move on deeper from that with your use cases. The other mind map that you had is really key on selecting what you're looking for. If you follow that and use this tool, you can quickly zone into the right solution for yourself.
the editor, yeah. Yeah, that looks good. So as Mark was saying, so all attendees will receive an email to test for 7 days. And we saw some subscription plans that Mark was showing. So I will just take the screen again, Mark, just to end up this webinar. Oops. So I was just back there. So the DAM playbook. So you saw all the vendor comparison, how to challenge and stump the vendors. And of course, I will just back to one of my favorite guys in this industry, Eric Chagnon, CEO of Michelin. He's now working for Microsoft, but I really like this sentence, which is really, okay, it's important to find the right technology, by the way, but you need to get the right people, and people are driving the success. So in the meantime, so because we are short in time, so we spend the time to answer to questions, but really feel free, and you get, of course, after this webinar, a link for the replay that you can find up to tomorrow. And if you feel free to ask questions to our DAM veterans. And so we are reachable, so you can use LinkedIn, whatever social things. We are trying on our side to leverage, and just last year we made 6 webinar series with Mark, so you can find also all of them and some deep dive analysis. So it's today our web TV, Activo TV is more, it's 500,000 of views and more followers after weeks. And the other things also, because we also started to do something. Of course, it was first of all for France, but this year we'll start a new series of events, and it will start with Untitled Berlin in 20th and 21st of September. So stay tuned to our website, and sharing and communication will be shared very soon. And of course, because we are French people, the version 2 of Untitled Paris will be hosted, of course, still in Paris, in the same place, in this amazing location where brands and retailers are playing the world together for 2 days. So now, as far we are far from a pandemic, so all the events will be 2 days. And always we are driven by our customer experience, open to all the DAM vendors. And last year, for very first time, we had all the DAM vendors in the same room, something which I can tell you, you are accustomed to get it in the US, but it was very first time in France. And finally, everything was okay for the best return of investment and experience for the customer. So anyway, you can touch us, contact us for anything. And thanks again to this amazing team. I really appreciate every time during the last year, we had some very amazing talks. I hope to meet you again in the next DAM show, Stewart, and etc. and on DAM for this year. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Fred.
Thanks, Frederick.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.